Hello. Hello, everyone. I'm Constantin Dumitrescu. I'm a sales director for Patton Central and Eastern Europe region. And I would like to thank you for being here today, for joining this webinar about Patton entitled New Product Briefing, High Density FXS Gateway. I also want to express thanks to my colleague Miklós Szabó, the CTO of Patton Hungary, for his support in preparing this event and in this way making your attending possible. Quickly about the topic of today's webinar. During this event, we will introduce you our new SN4741 high density gateway, explaining its capability and features. You'll see more about target application with use case examples for hospitality, industry, military, campus environments, providing advantages like high reliability and availability, easy setup. Important is also related with cloud-powered monitoring and management tool that we have, Patton Cloud. And yes, so please let me introduce you further our main panelists for this event, my colleague Miklós Szabó. In the end, please, if you have some questions and comments, you are free to ask. We encourage you. So welcome, Miklós. You have the word. Let's get started.
Thank you, Constantin. Welcome everybody on the today webinar about our new release of product, which is a high density gateway, analog gateway we will talking about today. So let's get started. I will start with a small agenda here. What we will talk today. So we will talk about the high density gateway itself. We will talk about the characteristic of the product, like the port density, port availability. We will go through on the use cases and the applications, and we will have a short introduction of the provisioning and orchestration, what we support currently. And the last but not least, we will talk about the roadmap of this product. And we will have a Q&A session. And regarding to the Q&A session, so in your application, you join this meeting in the go-to application under the question section. Please feel free to ask the questions. We will address all the questions after the webinar. Alternatively, we will answer the questions by email or to contact our sales or support department. So let's get started. So we are talking about today the new product release, which is a high density analog gateway. We are defining the right number of ports, not too many, not too few ports. So this basically eliminates the stacking products with multiple ports, and we are supporting from 16 to 128 port. As you can see, the number of ports, it's very flexible, so you can basically choose really the right number of ports for the application. So you don't need to buy a 128 port gateway for an application which only requires 72 ports. Good. It's coming with a high availability. The high availability means in this particular means that all of the products in this high density gateway category is coming with a dual power supply. So this is makes the product far more reliable than a single power supply version. It is also coming with a built-in surge protection on the analog lines. It's started to be less important to have it on the Ethernet side, because on the Ethernet side we have many other solutions to protect the Ethernet, but the analog ports are still somehow exposed to the environment, so it's very important to have surge protection on the analog ports. It's provide a link redundancy and survivability. So basically we can support multiple WAN links for survivability purpose, multiple SIP links to multiple SIP providers. So it's really about survivability. It supports notification and alerting through the normal way. You can get it through SNMP and any other meaning. But we also have some outlook to the Patton Cloud, where you can set the notification and alerting for the cloud-enabled unit very easily. It has a software upgrade path, which I will describe a little bit later. This is probably one of the most important part of the story, because you will learn through this presentation that this gateway not act as just a gateway, but it can do much more. As I just hinted, so we will go through on the specification, which is, by the way, the characteristic of the unit. In the past, we take in consideration of the port layout of the unit. In the past, in the high density gateways, we were supporting this RG21 telco connector, which require a specific cable to it. What is new in this product that we are also, beside the fact that we still support the RG21, we also support RG11 ports on the product, so it can be directly connected to either to analog phones or fax machines or anything else. On the VoIP side of the story, beside the usual codecs, which everybody knows, G711, stuff like that, we also support G722 and also support some other narrowband codecs here. The product is coming with a built-in echo cancellation, which is important, and also support local audio mixing for three-way conferencing or multi-way conferencing. This is also an important feature for high-density analog gateways. It is coming with a built-in IPv4 and IPv6 stack. It is important to note here that IPv4 and IPv6 stack, it's a dual stack. So basically every single Ethernet, or every single, I'm not saying Ethernet because we can also support virtual IP interfaces. So basically it's being said that the IP interfaces, the separate IP interfaces can support both stacks in the same time. So we don't need to take care about that on which side we have the IPv4 and on which side we have the IPv6, which is important for analog gateways. The message waiting indicators, we support multiple different methods for message waiting indicators. We support the high voltage, which is the, let's say that the traditional guys who are working with analog gateways saying that it's a light bulb. We support line reversal, and we support also the FSK, which is also the normal standard way how to support the message waiting indication. Which is very important in this product that we support the long reach, 10 kilometer at 3 RAN. So it's really covering different applications and long distances like campus applications, hotel applications, where you can get into the trouble that the cable is too long for a typical normal gateway. But fortunately, this supports the 10 kilometer at 3 RAN, which is a good number for analog gateways. As I just mentioned, it is coming with a built-in surge protection on the analog side. And the most important and the very interesting part of the story, it has different upgrade paths. So as I just hinted, that it's basically act as a single gateway, but it can do many, many more, because with additional licenses, you can turn this gateway into an IP router, which supports GRE, BGP, VRRP, RIP, and some other routing protocols. But with also additional licensing, you can make the unit as a full-feature SBC, which will act as a high-density analog port SBC if we name it. Good. So let's go through on the typical applications and why we are still using this kind of products. The high-density gateway supports a smooth all-IP integration. So somebody would ask the question that how it is possible that an analog gateway supports an all-IP integration, because we can have the SIP registrar license on it, which makes the SIP phones or soft phones registered to the analog gateway directly. In this case, it's already not acting as an analog gateway, but sort of SBC. So it can support in the same time the analog phones, and it can be connected to IPPBXs. And as I just mentioned, SIP phones can be connected, and it has the cloud management, which we will discuss a little bit later. So basically, there is a platform where you can set these licenses to this solution. Just on the previous slide, as I just mentioned about the message waiting indication, so we support the high voltage neon bulb message waiting indication. It's a 90 volt additional voltage on the line. We support the line reversal and FSK, which is most known method to support the MWI. It supports ring groups, so basically we can set the gateway on the way that it can support either forking the calls to the different ports, or it can ring simultaneous the different ports. So basically we can provide the full ring group functionality here. The last but not least is also supporting the priority call handling. So basically emergency calls will be handled with a priority. It's utilized the old infrastructure in the hotel. So if you can imagine that in the hotel room there are many analog phones. Let's talk about the hotel which is built in a older time, so it supports a lot of analog phones. So normally the hotels in nowadays, they don't really use anymore the guests, they don't use anymore the hotel room phones. Maybe they use it for internal discussion with the front desk or with reception, but they are not really doing any long distance calls, as the mobile phone is well spread around the globe and phone costs are reducing every year. So it's basically supports the existing infrastructure in the hotel. They don't need to get rid of the existing analog phones and change it to the very expensive IP phones in this particular moment, but they already can change the core infrastructure, having an IP PBX and getting rid of the old TDM switch what they used in the past. Good. The other application is for service providers. We all know that that analog lines from service provider side is getting terminated, as most of the service provider is on the way to have the full IP or all IP solutions offering. They are getting rid of the old TDM technologies, but it's not just the case with FXS and FXO, but it's also case of other TDM technologies. So basically, what does it mean? That the service providers are started to get rid of the local exchanges, the local TDM exchanges, and also new service offerings are started to be possible. So what are these new service offerings? That basically the service provider is on the same or the new infrastructure, they are started to offer the SIP-based services. So in this case, we can extend the lifespan of the existing infrastructure on the customer premise. So basically they don't need to get rid of the analog phones in the moment when the service provider starts to switch off those services. It's provide a low cost upgrade from the PSTN to IP based. As I just said, sometimes when we are changing the infrastructure behind it, the highest cost of this change is not the PBX itself, but it can be the handsets. So we don't need to change all the handsets in the hotel or in the hospital, but basically we can reutilize those handsets. So it provides a smooth migration path. What does it mean? That basically with one single unit, which we installed on the customer premise, we can be prepared for further migrations. What does it mean? That finally the customer decides that, okay, now I'm started to get rid of also the handsets, not just only the TDM PBX, but I'm also getting rid of the handsets. We are already being prepared to have the SIP registrar license installed on the unit in order to have the registrations from the SIP devices, which will be replaced, which will replace the FXS handsets. Okay, so in a hospital, very similar way as in the hotel application. So basically, you can see on the picture below that there are old phones. Even if you see a modern hotel room, there are old phones for emergency purpose, and there is area where the emergency phones are distributed. Those phones will remain for quite a while on the tables. And basically, this is really a good example how to utilize a high density analog gateway, because it supports up to 10 kilometers. Basically means that from the central office, we can spread the FXS ports around the campus. So we don't need to have a smaller gateway here, another smaller gateway there, because basically with one single device, we would be able to reach out to all the campus rooms, or basically emergency rooms, or just simply the patient room. It provides the surge protection, and it's coming with a dual power supply, as we just discussed before. Okay, the other big chunk of the applications where analog gateways are still relevant and still needed is basically mining applications, mining sites. We have live examples where the mining sites, if you see the picture, which is somewhere in the in the second half of this this montage, that basically there are analog phones for emergency purpose in the mine. The easiest way to bring the copper line into the mine, because anyway they need a lot of copper line. So basically we can reutilize those emergency phones in the mining environment, having the analog gateway. But not just only the mining, but other industry peers like oil and gas refineries, manufacturing and transportation and railway and stuff like that, they still would need analog lines in order to make the emergency calls and some other purposes. So what we put here is that this gateway is not just only available as a standalone, let's say, device, but it's also available in a ruggedized version, which is coming very soon. The ruggedized version will operate, of course, in a harsh environment with a extended temperature range and also against the humidity. So basically, this is something which will be considered for applications for mines and transportation and general manufacturing. All right, just to have a real outlook, but we are still talking about analogs. We renew or refreshed or small low density analog gateways. Basically, we introduced the new small ATA, which supports various analog profiles, just as the high density counterpart of the analog gateway. It supports SRTP, RTP, and in the same way it supports the IPv4, IPv6. It supports the zero-touch provisioning, can be cloud orchestrated, very similar way as the other products, and it's ideal for mass deployments. So it's just a teaser that we are not just only refreshing our high-density gateway portfolio, but we are also refreshing our, let's say, low-density few port analog gateway portfolio as well. Good, and I was talking about that the gateway is doing something more than being a simple analog gateway. As you can see in the picture, this is a typical application where the service provider is connecting the SIP lines, and basically on the analog ports we have various analog devices like analog phones and fax machines and stuff like that. But we can add additional licenses to it, and we can make it cloud orchestrated. So we can manage the complete solutions from the Patton cloud, and we can add also SBC functionality to the device, which means that the SIP phones and soft phones, laptops, and the other SIP devices can register directly to the gateway, meaning that basically even when the SIP line would break down or there would be an outage on the SIP line, basically these station-to-station callings, they were still working. So what does it mean? That basically from the SIP device, we can still call the analog lines and vice versa. On top of it, we can also come up with some ruggedized version of the device. So that's something what we discussed before. And immediately we are able to connect some other application elements like ruggedized phone from mining, outdoor intercoms from some campus application. And also we can put some additional license on the gateway, which is IP routing license. So we would be able to support complete edge routing, and we would be able to support also VPN connections from the outside world. The last but not least, is very important to notice that it's 10 kilometers. So basically it is important in campus environments, and it's also important in mining environments where really there can be a long distance between the analog phone sets and the gateway itself. Cloud management, as you may already learn about it, that we have a management platform. The analog gateway is not an exemption. It also can be managed through the Patton cloud, where the Patton cloud, beside the normal management functions like software licensing, alarming and notification, general supervision of the CPE, like seeing the temperature, seeing the memory usage and stuff like that. It supports also config management, but not just only this. We can also integrate it with the customer service. So basically remote troubleshooting makes it easier because you can log into the device very easily from one single platform. You can do the warranty management, so you can set alarms and alerts that one of the units is going out of warranty. So basically it will send you a message either on SMS or on email or on some other meaning. So basically that's a cool feature to monitor the devices. It supports various provisioning scenarios, zero-touch provisioning, and also supports the wizards, which we developed in the past, and I will talk about probably one slide later. You can see the install progress. So basically, you can make sure that the devices which is managed through the Patton Cloud are in a good shape. And more, when we are moving into the all IP environments, the call quality is coming into place. So everybody started to learn that how important is to ensure the call quality on the IP links, as we learned in the past from TDM. So for having it, we built in scoring and metrics in the Patton Cloud. So getting the most scoring information from the device itself, we would be able to define that the call has a good quality or a bad quality. So basically, even the troubleshooting will go easily because we can go after the problems before the customer would be able to report it, because we see immediately from the cloud. It provides additional integration methods to OSS and BSS solution, or billing and other management platforms or other provisioning platforms. How we are doing it, basically we can enable the Patton Cloud API, and through the RESTful API, we would be able to integrate all the management functionality of the Patton Cloud into some third-party devices. How the Patton Cloud looks like. So once you log into the Patton Cloud, there is a dashboard which shows you all the devices what you have on the network. Basically, you can define immediately how many of your devices are offline, how many devices are online, what kind of devices you have on the network, and also what kind of firmware version you are running with the devices. This is from the dashboard. The Patton Cloud has many functionalities, so this is something which is really just the first look of it. And what we built in and what we were talking about is basically the call quality monitoring. So you can catch a regular call and seeing whether the call was successful, and you can also see whether the call had a good quality or it had a bad quality. If it had a bad quality, you immediately can start the troubleshooting through the platform. So that's about the Patton Cloud. It's really about just a teaser. And let's go through what kind of provisioning and configuration options we are able to provide with the Patton products. As I just mentioned, that there is a configuration wizard, which provide basically a very user-friendly graphical interface to configure the devices. Basically, it's a walkthrough approach, very similar as normal Windows approaches, like next, okay, and next, and okay. So it's really following the same approach. Basically, through the wizards, we provide all the necessary information, grabbing out from the configuration, putting into the graphical user interface, and you will not see any other which is not important in terms of configuration. Basically, just the very important part of the configuration can be grabbed out from the certain configuration, and basically IP addresses, net mask, gateway, credentials, the peers and stuff like that, and you are ready to go. The wizard is a very convenient way to configure all of our devices. So we are not just only talking about the high density gateways, but also we are talking about the low density ATAs, which the SN200, I just showed you a few slides ago, but all basically all the rest of the products which are running the Trinity software, we call it, all of our products in the new series are running the Trinity software, can be managed and configured through the wizards. Beside the wizards, we also made easy configuration for 3CX users. It's a long-awaited feature. We had a very, very good engagement in the 3CX all of the time, but something we're missing. Basically, the new generation of our products were the direct configuration from the 3CX software was missing, but this is something which came to place. So basically, beside having the already known BRI and E1 gateways, now the analog gateways, the small analog gateway, and also the high density analog gateway can be directly managed and configured from the 3CX software. This is important for CCX users because makes their life much easier. How to integrate PSTN lines, how to integrate FXS devices, or how to integrate E1 trunks and stuff like that. What we have with the 3CX on the roadmap is our SBC portfolio, which is the next step. What we will make it available and configurable through the 3CX phone system. The other methods of configuration of our devices, what we call a zero-touch provisioning, is basically beside the Patton Cloud, which we just talked before. We also support a free service, which is a redirect service. Basically, the redirect service is working on the way that through a secure HTTPS link, the device, once you open the box, and if your account is enabled in this free service, the device will search for its configuration on the redirect service based on his MAC address, and once he find it, basically we'll download the configuration snippet or the home configuration, which will point to the service provider's provisioning server. So it makes the life easier because there is no human interaction in it. The unit is pre-configured on the way that it is able to connect to the redirect service, but not all of the units is coming to be able to connect to the third-party provisioning server. So it is important in order to be or have the unit prepared to be configured from the provisioning server. The second meaning of provisioning is the cloud provisioning. It doesn't need extra server. It's a simple configuration provisioning from Patton Cloud. This is something you can imagine from the pictures, what I had just 2 slides before. But of course, the service providers, they like to use other meanings which they already implemented in the past, like TRO69. We certainly support the TRO69. We also support DHCP option 66, which is also very well spread among the service providers as a method to configure the devices. And we also support the custom factory configuration. So what does it mean? That basically supporting the mass deployment, we will place the already defined configuration on the unit. So once it is coming out from the factory, it will consist and it will contain the configuration which you exactly need to have the unit plug and play. It's a pre-configuration. All right, about the future of this product. So as we are talking in the as we discussed that there is a different FXS ports. So basically, the RG11 port is available right now on the devices. So currently, you can order immediately the devices with the standalone RG11 ports. The RG21 port is also in preparation. So we are starting to ship the devices in July, where the customer needs the RG21 telco connector, and the currently available devices are from 16 to 32 ports. But as I just showed you on the very first picture of the devices, that we are expanding the number of ports, meaning that we are starting to take the orders for it and having the shipping somewhere in the second half of the year, where the 48/128 port will be available for the devices. Just to wrap up what we discussed today and what is the values of generally say Patton products, and it is really about all of our products and not just only about the high density gateway. It's important to mention here that all of our products, what we are talking today and what we were talking is running the Trinity software. So, and it's a high quality software. It's developed in Switzerland. The bare metal, which is we are providing with those units, are manufactured in the United States. So you can imagine that it's a high quality product what you get out of the box. It has interoperability. We are working with various different names on the market, various different vendors to have the proven interoperability with other systems. What I just mentioned, we are running one operating system, so you learn one and you know all of it. So somebody who learned the one single port analog gateway configuration doesn't need to be afraid to start configuring an E1 gateway or an SBC, because it's really the same software and the same fundamentals. We have a continuous software release strategy. It's a well-defined strategy, and we are providing the softwares for free. We are releasing the software every 2 months, so it's every second month you should expect new software release, which consists bug fixes if there is any, and some future enhancement of the software. So it's flexible, as we just discussed, that basically one analog gateway can be used for many other use cases, and through the upgrade path, we can turn our analog gateway or turn our SBC into an edge router or to a VPN concentrator or stuff like that. It provides additional security, SIP-TLS and SRTP. It's built into all of our products. It supports OpenVPN, and basically also the all IP is an important in the ESBC portfolio, which will help you in the migration effort to all IP solutions. All right, so that's basically it for today. So that's what I prepared as a slides, and let's jump on the questions if there is any questions. So let me open the questions field here. So somebody is asking, hotels more and more prefers GPON based solutions. Do you have competitor analysis how to argue against them? Well, it depends on. The easy answer is that the GPON based solution is for, as my understanding, I'm not sure whether in all of the installation they are going with the fiber optics to every room. If they do, that's very expensive to redo all the infrastructure. So basically, when we are doing the competition analysis between having an analog gateway and analog phone sets, and having the GPON and having the fiber switches and having the new generation of SIP phones, basically we need to calculate all of the costs around here. So it basically means that you don't need to drill in the wall, you don't need to buy new cables, you don't need to change the headset. So in comparison of the whole project, where you just simply need to replace the TDM PBX with the analog gateway, I'm 100% sure that it's less expensive than replacing all the infrastructure to be prepared for fiber optics. I'm not sure whether I answered the question, but certainly if there is a project for it, please feel free to contact the support personnel or to write directly to the support@patton.com. And based on the number of endpoints and based on the number of the whole project, we would be able to suggest what would be the argument and what would be the use case for having the analog gateways instead of the fiber optics. All right, so let me go through the other questions here. Does license need for cloud management use? The device itself doesn't need a license for being managed by the cloud, but you need the cloud plan to purchase a cloud plan in order to be able to manage the device. So the device itself doesn't need a specific license to be able to manage by the cloud, but to have the device managed from the cloud, you would need to purchase a cloud plan, which I recommend to reach out to the salespeople or salespeople, and they will be able to send you a quotation for the cloud plan. Okay, so what other questions do we hear? Okay, wait a second. How can I? Okay. Okay, so I see another question about FXO. So currently we are having the product line for FXS. It's in the future to make also the FXO high density gateways available. I cannot tell you right now the date, but please feel free to reach out to our salespeople and support, and we will look into it, and we would be able to inform you when the FXO port gateways will be available. Okay, the other question is, which models have a built-in IP-PBX? Built-in IP-PBX, it's what do we mean under built-in IP-PBX? Because these are generally, essentially, these are gateways. What we have is that we have some sort of IP-PBX functionality if you install the SIP registrar license, basically what would means that with the SIP registrar license, you would be able to do the station-to-station calling. So if the SIP phone is calling the FXS port, or the FXS port is calling the SIP phone, you would be able to do this station-to-station calling without having any external IP PBX system. The other answer to your question, and I'm not sure whether I'm really answering the question, but the other answer would be that that we have built devices where basically the gateways are built together with a ITX board, where you can install a PBX, a software-based PBX on it. So we have those devices. If you are interested in, please feel free to reach out to our salespeople, and they will be able to introduce you the devices which are able to run third-party IP PBX softwares. Okay, I hope that answered your questions, gentlemen, and I don't see any other question coming from the audience. So if you have any other question, please feel free to reach out to the salespeople or to write a message to support@patton.com, and we will be able to assist you to your inquiry. Don't hesitate and do that. Thank you so much. That would be it for today, and I'm glad that we come together in a large number for this presentation. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.